You're not lost. You've just spent too long trying to become someone who would finally be loved, accepted, admired. And in the process, you forgot who you really are. This video is not here to fix you, because you're not broken. It's here to remind you. Your soul didn't disappear. You just stopped listening. The silent feeling of being lost, but functional. You wake up, check your phone, get dressed, go to work, talk to people, laugh when needed, smile when expected. You're doing everything right. And yet, something in you feels strangely off. Like you're watching yourself live from the outside. Like you're playing a character in a story you didn't write. People say you seem fine. But when you're alone and the distractions fade, you feel it. A strange emptiness. A quiet ache that has no name. It's not depression. It's not a crisis. It's more subtle, more invisible. It's the slow erosion of your inner truth. This feeling is not new. It's been building for years. You started compromising small things. What you liked, what you believed in, what you felt. Not because you were weak, but because the world taught you something dangerous. That your truth was too much, too intense, too strange, too inconvenient. So you adapted. You learned how to be liked, how to be needed, how to succeed. And you got really good at it. But in that process, you walked away from yourself, little by little. You don't remember exactly when it started. Maybe when you chose the safe path instead of the meaningful one. Maybe when you swallowed your anger to avoid conflict. Maybe when you laughed even though you were hurting. Or when you said yes, just to not disappoint someone. These moments seemed harmless, but each one was a small betrayal of your inner compass. And here you are, not lost in the traditional sense. You know your address, you know your goals, you know your passwords, but you've lost something else. You've lost the spark, the aliveness, the sense that what you're doing actually belongs to you. And that's the silent pain of millions of people. They're not in a crisis, they're just deeply out of alignment. It's a hidden kind of suffering, because from the outside, everything looks fine. You're responsible, you're functioning, you're even successful. But inside, you're drifting further and further from what your soul is really calling for. And here's the hardest part. No one sees it, because you've built such a convincing version of yourself. A version that pleases, that performs, that endures. But this version isn't the full you. That ache you feel at night, that heaviness in your chest when you're alone, it's your soul trying to remind you. You're not here to live someone else's version of life. You're here to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. This is not about quitting everything or running away. It's about pausing long enough to hear what your truth has been whispering all along. Because sometimes being lost isn't about direction. It's about disconnection. And the way back isn't found in more productivity, more achievements, or more validation. It starts with something else entirely. But before we go there, you need to ask yourself a hard question. Whose voice are you really living by? The invisible prison of living by the expectations of others. You didn't choose this distance from your truth on purpose. No one wakes up one day and says, "I think I'll stop being myself today." It happens slowly, silently, almost invisibly. At first it was small. You hid a part of your personality to fit in. You downplayed your passions because they seemed impractical. You acted stronger than you felt, just to avoid making others uncomfortable. You were just surviving, trying to belong, trying to be loved, and in a world that constantly tells you who to be. Successful, positive, polite, productive. Of course you started shaping yourself to match those expectations. But here's the cost. Every time you override your inner voice to meet someone else's standard, you reinforce the idea that your truth is not enough. This is how the invisible prison is built. Not with bars or chains, but with smiles, applause, and approval. You become the version of yourself that others prefer. And it works. People like you. You get invited, promoted, admired. But deep down, something starts to feel hollow. Because you know you're not showing the full you. You're showing the version that performs, the version that avoids rejection, the version that's safe. This is where many people confuse success with alignment. You might have the job, the relationship, the apartment, the routines. But if it was all built from a place of self-abandonment, then it doesn't nourish you. It drains you. And the worst part is, you feel guilty for feeling empty. You think, I have so much. Why do I still feel like something's missing? That guilt keeps you silent. So you smile. You keep going. You distract yourself. But your soul knows. It remembers the dreams you buried, the instincts you ignored, the boundaries you softened, the truths you silenced just to be accepted. And eventually, it starts to ache. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in small, subtle symptoms. Emotional numbness, a sense of flatness, like nothing deeply excites you anymore. Anxiety that seems to have no clear reason. Resentment toward things you agreed to, but didn't truly want. A lingering question. Is this really my life? This isn't weakness. This is your soul calling you back. Because your soul doesn't care how admired you are. It cares whether you're true. And here's the truth most people avoid. The life built from disconnection will always require more effort to maintain than the life built from authenticity. Why? Because pretending is exhausting. Because hiding is heavy. Because every time you silence your truth, your body keeps the score, through tension, fatigue, or burnout. So what do? First, stop judging yourself. This wasn't your fault. You were conditioned to believe that fitting in was more important than being real. That being agreeable was safer than being honest. That being successful was better than being fulfilled. You inherited those beliefs, but you don't have to keep them. Because the truth is, you're not broken. You're just out of alignment with your essence. And the moment you start reconnecting to that essence, everything begins to shift. Not perfectly, not instantly, but deeply. So the question now is, are you ready to start remembering who you were, before the world convinced you to forget? The voice that never went away. There's a voice inside you that never stopped speaking. It didn't shout. It didn't demand. It whispered, patiently, softly, waiting for you to remember. That voice is your inner truth, not your achievements, not your roles, not your resume, but the you underneath it all. You might have ignored it for years. You might have convinced yourself that it was childish, idealistic, or unrealistic. You might have buried it beneath what looked like success. But that voice has memory. It remembers who you were before the world asked you to be useful. It remembers what lit you up before you were told to be efficient. It remembers the version of you that wasn't afraid to feel, to dream, to imagine something more. You don't need to create your authentic self. You just need to uncover it. The reason so many people feel lost is not because they don't have direction, but because they're following a direction that was never theirs to begin with. And eventually, the soul rebels. It does it subtly at first. You stop caring about things that once excited you. You feel uninspired even in moments that should feel happy. You crave solitude, but don't know why. You start questioning the things you used to chase. These are not signs of failure. These are signs of awakening. Your truth is knocking. And no, you don't have to burn your life down to listen. But you do have to stop lying to yourself about what's working and what isn't. You do have to start asking harder questions. When did I start living on autopilot? What parts of me have I muted just to avoid rejection? Whose life am I really living? The answers might scare you, because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. But they'll also liberate you, because once you feel your truth, you'll never want to live numb again. And here's something no one tells you. Coming home to yourself won't always feel like peace at first. It might feel like grief, because you'll grieve the years you spent pretending. You'll grieve the dreams you delayed. You'll grieve the version of yourself that tried so hard to be loved by being everything but you. Let yourself grieve. That grief is sacred. It means you're waking up. It means you're finally telling the truth. Not to others, but to yourself. And that's where healing begins. Not when others understand you, but when you understand that you were never truly lost. You were just too far from the place that felt like home. Your inner truth. The most important journey of your life is not out there. It's inward. And it starts the moment you stop looking for who you're supposed to be and start remembering who you already are. The cost of living too far from yourself. You can function far from your truth. You can even succeed, but it will cost you, quietly, invisibly, and deeply. The first thing it takes is your energy. Not just physical energy, but emotional vitality. Because it takes enormous effort to constantly suppress who you really are. To fake smiles in conversations that don't matter to you. To say yes when your soul is screaming no. To live a life that looks good but doesn't feel good. The second thing it costs is your clarity. The longer you live disconnected from yourself, the harder it becomes to even know what you want. You start confusing desire with distraction. You chase things not because you love them, but because you hope they'll fill the ache inside. But they never do. And the third, the most painful, is that it costs you your self-respect. Because deep down, you know. You know when you're betraying yourself. You know when you're settling. You know when you're dimming your light just to be accepted by people who wouldn't love the full version of you anyway. This kind of life doesn't fall apart overnight. It crumbles slowly, in moments of silence, in random tears, in that sinking feeling when you realize, I've built all of this, but I don't feel me inside any of it. No one teaches us how to return to ourselves. We're taught how to succeed, how to please, how to win, but not how to come back home. So here's the truth most people avoid. Reconnecting with your inner truth isn't convenient. It will ask you to let go of things. It might ask you to disappoint people. It will certainly ask you to stop pretending. But what you get in return is priceless. A calm that doesn't depend on external validation. A confidence that comes from alignment, not applause. A deep inner peace that whispers, I'm living my life, no one else's. You don't need to find a new self. You need to remove everything that's not you. The masks, the roles, the identities you adopted to survive. Let them go. Because the real you, the inner truth you thought you lost, is still there, waiting, unchanged, unwounded, unashamed. It's not too late. You don't have to keep walking a path that empties you. You're allowed to change direction. You're allowed to admit, this isn't who I want to be anymore. That's not failure. That's evolution. And every step back to yourself is a step into a life that finally feels real. The path back. How to return to your inner truth. If you've made it this far, it's because something deep inside you knows. You're not broken. You're not lost. You've just wandered too far from your own soul. And now, it's time to come back. But not in a dramatic, overnight transformation. That's another lie the world sells. That healing comes in one big, Instagram-worthy moment. The truth is quieter. It's slower. And much more honest. Coming back to yourself begins in the small moments. It's in saying no when every part of you wants to people please. It's in pausing before reacting, and asking, is this really how I feel? It's in letting go of roles you never chose to play in the first place. You start by noticing. Noticing when you abandon yourself. noticing when you shrink to fit into places you've outgrown, noticing when your soul whispers, "This isn't it," and finally listening. Then you begin to rebuild. Not the life you think you should have, but the one your inner truth has been waiting for. That might mean slowing down. It might mean being misunderstood. It might mean grieving the version of you that only knew how to survive. But don't be afraid of the in-between. The chaos you feel when you leave behind who you're not isn't proof that you're lost. It's proof that you're becoming. You see, the moment you stop running from yourself, you remember something sacred. That your truth was never destroyed, only buried. That your soul was never missing, only ignored. That the life you're longing for isn't out there. It's within you. And once you reconnect with that, everything changes. Not all at once, but deeply. You'll start to feel lighter even when life is hard. More alive even in the stillness. More real even when the world wants performance. This isn't about finding answers. It's about living in alignment with the questions that matter. It's about asking yourself every day, is this true for me? Am I honoring what I really feel? Does this version of me feel alive? Because in the end, nothing you build will feel fulfilling if it's built on a foundation that betrays your inner truth. So maybe today, you don't need to figure it all out. You don't need a 5-year plan. You just need to take one honest step back toward yourself. Say what you mean. Feel what you feel. Live what you believe. Because you were never lost, just distant. And now, you're finding your way back. One breath, one choice, one truth at a time.